Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Ducati NYC Vloggy Vlog podcast. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me and listening to another episode of this ramble of a motorcycle nerd. And just like Vloggy Vlogs, podcast allows me to share my passion for all things motorcycle. However, unlike a Vloggy Vlog, in a podcast, I can actually focus and concentrate and perhaps speak in more coherent sentences and develop thoughts much better than I could while riding through near city traffic or even riding in general. Because when you're riding, you constantly are bombarded with feelings and, emotions and senses. While podcasting, you can focus. Anyway, on the vlog, I often get asked the same question. When are you getting a new bike? And what kind of new bike are you going to get? And I inevitably answer the same thing. I really don't know. I might get the Monster 821, but that's a whole another topic. That's another podcast that I am going to talk about my recent test ride and my thoughts about 821 as a motorcycle, as a monster. But I often just say I really love my 620. I'm really content. I'm really happy. And I've been asked many times, what is it about that bike that you really like, that you really love? And on this podcast, I would like to explain how I fell in love with my 2006 Ducati Monster 620. In the previous podcast, I went over in great detail about the story of how I got it, how I found it, and all of that. But I'll bring you up to speed really quick. Basically, I got my license, and this 620, this Monster, is the only bike I've ever had, and it's my first bike. And right after I got my license, I was looking at bikes. Basically, it took me a couple of weeks, or maybe a week or two, to locate this Monster. And I live in New York City, and this Monster was, 6 hours north in Worcester, Massachusetts. And anyway, so I took a U-Haul, I brought it back to New York City, and I started riding it. And that's the only bike I know, really. I've ridden plenty of other bikes since then, just, for a quick test ride or for a couple of days or, for a long ride. But I always keep coming back to the 620, and it feels like home. Obviously, when you ride a motorcycle for a while, it becomes very comfy and very, like I said, feels like home. So that's understandable as to why I can't wait to get back on my bike. However, some bikes I ride are brand new and nice and technically much better than mine. However, for some reason, I'm still drawn back to my 620. So I basically made a little list of the things that I really enjoy about it. And I'll start at the top of it and go down through the list. And one of the first things I love about it is obviously the looks and the style of it. When I didn't even have a motorcycle, I always loved the naked bike look, like the naked sports bike, the street fighter kind of thing, the exposed engine and the frame and all of that, like the rawness of it. Because the sports bikes, while vicious in performance and looks to me, they're something is covered up, obviously, with the fairings, the engine, everything. So it's kind of like all tucked away, while the Monsters are exposed and just almost like rat bikes in a way, in some weird way. So right away when I was looking at motorcycles, I was just drawn towards the Monsters, and just the fat, plump gas tank and the exposed trellis frame, the big round headlight, the exhausts, also the big fat yellow spring in the back. That's just you can have in my head, I always wanted a all black motorcycle with silver fork and all black wheels and everything. I only wanted red tail light and then silver forks, and then I noticed the yellow spring on a Monster, and I got obsessed with that little detail. And I was looking through a lot of models for Monsters, and a lot of them had that little yellow spring. And 620 just seemed like the proper place to start for me, because it wasn't too big, it wasn't too small. I was also looking at an SV650 Suzuki, but Monster was what I really wanted, Ducati, because there's a lot of reasons why I wanted a Ducati, and I'll get into it a little bit later. But as far as looks, It's a fat, short, plump little bike with big round headlight, exposed frame, and just like everything hanging off. And which, sound is a huge part of it as well. And the way it sounded, the way I've heard it pass by, like the reason why I found those Mivv exhausts that I have on my bike was because one day I was walking down the street before I even had motorcycles, and I heard this Monster that had these big fat round cans, which I thought were Mivvs. Later, through my research, through Google Images, I found them. But it sounded so insane, and I didn't know why it sounded the way it did, and I wasn't sure if all motorcycles can be sounding like that. Obviously not. Obviously, L-Twins have a very unique sound, but the sound was overwhelming. So between the looks, the style, and just like the sound, all of that, it was a huge reason why I got the bike, and it's a huge reason why I still love it. There's this cheesy saying where like, if you don't look back at your bike after you park it, you got the wrong one. And it's like, I check out my bike all the time. I literally get off the bike and I look at it and I'm just like, damn, what a fucking bike. I can't believe I got this thing. Pardon my French. And the next thing I want to talk about is the comfort of it. It's an incredibly comfortable ride because the inseam, my inseam is like 32, I guess, 31. And on the Monster, the inseam is 30. So, or 31 as well. So it's a perfect fit. I'm flat-footed, so I can actually sit on it. But at the same time, so I can sit on it flat-footed. I can sit on it vertically and comfortably, like I'm cruising, like on a standard bike. But at the same time, I can slide back on the seat, just a little bit, like an inch or two, and tuck in and arch my back. And all of a sudden, I can become freaking street Rossi and drag my knee in my head, of course. And the comfort of it was perfect. Like the handlebars were vertical, no clip-ons, and plenty of room. Even though you are a little bit cramped, and I've ridden this thing cross-country twice, I've never felt like, oh my God, this bike is too small or too this or too that. It was just right, just perfect. So the comfort of it is another huge reason why I still love it to this day. And I can get on it and ride. And sometimes my neck hurts a little bit, but that's probably because of my posture and the way I sit, but that's after like hundreds of miles. So that's a beautiful thing. Another reason why I really, really love this bike is the reliability. And I know that's like a crazy thing to say, because Ducati is not known for reliability, and it's not known for, for quality, if anything. I mean, it's quality, it's beautiful and everything like that. But as far as actual technical quality, not so much. But that being said, this 620 has been bulletproof. I mean, I keep saying it, but it is two big feats. Like, I've rode it cross country across USA 2 times, and both times they were almost 5,000 mile trips, to the point where I left New York City fully trusting that my little 620 Monster will make it to California, to the West Coast, to Portland, Oregon. It always did. Obviously, there were some breakdowns, like nothing catastrophic, thank God. And I actually want to talk about all this. I will talk about my history with the 620 in a different podcast. But there, the things that did go wrong were all my fault. For example, I headed out because my front bearings and my front wheel were loose, and I knew that, but I just rode with them anyway, like an idiot. And they failed, when I was in Milwaukee, and it got replaced on the spot. Another time, the chain was loose and crappy, and I should have put on a new chain before going on my cross-country ride, and the chain got destroyed. So it came off, and I actually put the messed up twisted chain back on and hobbled like 200 miles to the dealer to get it replaced. And beyond that, a fuse blew out, then my rear sprocket went, my rear bearings went and started making noises, and that's about it. Eventually my clutch wore out after 25,000 miles because I always abuse it and drag it and all those terrible things. So, but that's maintenance, that's maintenance. So overall, the bike has been incredibly reliable, and even right now it's struggling a little bit. It's got a little bit of backfiring, sputtering, little oily issues, whatnot. It's started to show its age. It needs to be rebuilt. But it's still going. It's still going strong, very strong. So The next thing I would like to mention on this little list of why I love this bike so much is the price, the cost. And it's a Ducati. It's a beautiful, gorgeous, real deal Ducati. And some call it not a real Ducati because it's not like fancy and red and fast as hell. To me, and to majority of people who are normal, it's a real Ducati. And even though it's like a base model and like, the cheapest model that year, more or less, unless you go to like European and Asian markets where they had like, I think a 400 Monster. But as far as price, like I paid $3,900 for this bike. For like $1,000 less, I could have had a SV 650 Suzuki, which would have been more reliable and blah, 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 cheaper to maintain. But overall, the price is pretty good. The cost for a Ducati, it is expensive because 6,000 mile service intervals and valve jobs and all that, that's not cheap. Unless you have a garage and you know how to do your own valve jobs, you're going to take it to the shop. You are definitely taking it to the shop. And those services are expensive. I've paid upwards of $100, $900 per service because I live in New York City and because I take my motorcycle to the best mechanic. So that's my own fault, for paying that much or not doing it myself. But overall, the cost for all the parts, all the mods, all the things, like all the little parts, like sometimes like some random switch or something breaks on it, some random like, I don't even know, like some little doohickey. I go and I have the parts catalog. Everybody should have a parts catalog for their bike and the shop manual. I look up the part number, I eBay that part number, and guaranteed there is dozens of parts because a lot of these monsters have interchangeable parts over the years. So I can borrow from many different models over the years. So parts are cheap. For a nice, sweet, Italian, sexy motorcycle, the parts sure are not that expensive, which is a really nice thing. So that's another reason why I love it. Because if I had a much fancier Ducati, which was much more expensive, and it had the same amount of little things I had to fix on it and do for it, I could see if it was double the price, it could get old. But in my case, this 620 is perfect. And that is the reason why I love it, because I'm worried about switching to a different platform or newer bike, and then I'm entering a whole unknown world of issues and problems that could cost a lot of money. Because to me, riding is day to day, every day. And I can't imagine being without a bike for a day, let alone a week, let alone a month while it's being fixed, or because I don't have the money to fix it. That would be tragic. That would be horrible. And that's something I'm interested in. The next item on my little list as to why I really love it is, believe it or not, the performance. The 2006 the 620 came with like 60 horsepower, 62, 63 horsepower, and non-adjustable forks front and back. I put adjustable fork from S2R 1000 Monster on mine. And I took it to Washington Cycles in New Jersey, and they adjusted it to my weight. But ever since then, I've lost a lot of oil, so I should have my forks rebuilt, but that's a whole nother story. But as far as the horsepower, the torque, the performance, like I said, this is my only bike, so I don't know any better. So sometimes I sit on a better bike with better suspension, and I'm just like, oh, wow, that's how it's supposed to handle. But for my little 620, my bike hauls ass. It hauls ass. It's fast as hell, plenty fast, too fast, and it handles pretty goddamn good. The chassis is pretty goddamn good. The suspension is divey and crazy, but because, it's not top line, but it handles pretty damn good. And check out my vlogs. Obviously, you're going to look at my vlogs and see that I ride like an idiot or whatever, and it doesn't require, that doesn't seem like performance is important to me, but it is. And sometimes I go out on the twisties and I do these like segments, which I call Catskill TT, where I ride these circuits upstate in the Catskills that I love, that I frequent. And, I don't need a faster bike. I don't want a faster bike. This bike I can gun in every gear, first, second, third, fourth, blasting through fifth. You know what I mean? Six is for cruising, but sometimes I'm in the top of fourth, just gunning it and downshifting up and down. And it allows me to shift more often, because on this new Monster that I rode, I stayed in the second gear and third gear the whole damn time. You can go 80, 90 miles per hour in third gear. It's crazy. It's silly. You could stay in second gear the whole damn ride. But on this bike, I was going through gears, and not was, am. I am going through gears, and that is why I love it. Because it's just theater. It's just excitement. Like, you feel like a MotoGP rider. You constantly are just like, on it, gunning it. You're not babying it. The bike wants to be thrashed, and that is something I love so much about this bike. And it's something I would miss if I was to get a new bike that is a lot faster, that I have to baby, there's drawbacks and benefits to everything, and I'm sure I'd get used to the power and so, but there's something beautiful about the way the 620 L Twin just delivers power. It's ruthless. It takes off. It off the line, it's faster than some of these sport bikes, because of the torque and everything. I mean, obviously it started losing out at the top end and the top speeds, but off the get-go, not a slouch. Little baby 620 is not a slouch by any means. And the brakes, you got dual Brembos on the front, rear Brembo as well. Dual Brembos, they're plenty of stopping power, more than enough. It's plenty. So, which kind of leads me into the point of feel. It just feels really, really nice. It handles really well. And just when you're sat on it, kind of going back to comfort and ergonomics, it's just, you're part of the bike. You could do, like, in your head, you're doing like street Rossi type shit. You're upstate in like twisties in the middle of nowhere. You can actually like see the apex, line it up, lean into it, and shift your ass in the seat and put your knee down a little bit. I never touch my knee, but in my head I do. But the thing is, it's like, it's a sports bike. I always forget, like, because I usually think of it as like kind of like a naked, like cafe racer, standard, like regular bike kind of thing. But I often see it listed as a sport bike, as a naked sport bike, as a street fighter. And, moments like that make me feel proud. And I agree. That bike is most definitely a sport bike. And it just makes me feel fantastic. Not just performance-wise and when I'm riding it, but just the fact that I own a part of this racing pedigree, this Ducati. Like, I'm a big nerd. You can tell I'm a fanboy. You can call me a fanboy. That's fine. And there's nothing wrong with being really into a brand. Trust me, I love all bikes. I respect all bikes. I would ride any bike. Owning a bike versus riding a bike is very different. Because owning a bike is something you ride every single day, and like you better be passionate about the bike that you're riding. You shouldn't just be like, oh, whatever, next year I'll probably try something different. Or you could, if that's your sack of bananas, then sure, you can get a different bike every couple of weeks, every month, every year, whatever. But to me, the bike has to make me feel really, really special, and this one does. Ducati as a brand does. It's kind of like, what's the best way to put it without sounding? It's almost like, it's like Ducati is a fancy brand. Like there's a couple of different people in the world. There's different types of people out there. Some people say, "Oh, I don't care about Ferraris, and I never want to drive a Ferrari. Who cares? It's whatever, overpriced, stupid thing for rich idiots." I'm the kind of person who really does want to drive a Ferrari, own a Ferrari, and I'd love to be able, I'm grinding and I'm trying to make money, but so far I'm not buying a Ferrari. But Ducati, somehow, some way, long time ago when I was a kid, somehow I brainwashed myself into thinking that Ducati is this like ultimate premium, amazing brand, and that's like Ferrari of motorcycles kind of thing. And one day, when I was finally able to buy a Ducati, granted I bought the cheapest Ducati money can buy, not the cheapest, but pretty damn cheap. And as far as the model goes, because my specimen was amazing with 1,400 miles, forget it. But yeah, like when I was finally able to buy a Ducati and get my license, and it was in the cards that I was going to start riding, and at one point I was like, no, Suzuki is more reliable, Honda is more reliable, I should just get a Honda Hawk or a Suzuki SV, and it would make more sense. And then I started losing the plot, and I'm so happy my buddy Bird stepped in and said, no, dude, Ducati is your passion. You always wanted a Ducati. No compromises. Go for it. Do it. And he got a Harley, so he's a Harley dude. But not anymore. He's switching to BMW, I think. But anyway, like, it makes me feel incredibly special. The brand just, it's not for everybody, you know. And it's funny because with a lot of my friends, we bust each other's balls, you know. Like, I have a lot of friends who ride Triumphs, so I bust their balls, and you know, in my head somehow, like, I don't really care, but like in my head, Ducati is much superior to Triumph. Why? I mean, I don't know. I could probably come up with a couple of reasons right now that probably would be like non-factual and silly, but I do consider Ducati superior in a way, and it does make me feel really cool and really special, perhaps in a douchey way, that I ride a Ducati. And I know this probably is going to get a lot of hate because it's very simplified and very like basic. Like, I'm a basic boy. But yeah, Ducati makes me feel special. Every single time I get on a bike, I start it up. Like, every time I start it up and I hear that noise and I go down the street, like, I'm not making this up. Every upshift, downshift, every turn, I feel freaking amazing. I mean, I also have the Moto adaptive LED, which is like a theater in itself, and lights up the whole street. And when you turn it on, it swirls and everything. It's awesome. Check out Moto, by the way. Awesome people over there. And yeah, it just makes me feel epic every single damn ride. I cannot even. It's gonna. It's people always say like, no, you like Ducati because like your vlog is Ducati NYC and your Instagram is Ducati NYC and your podcast now is Ducati NYC. So like, you're kind of like, you like cornered yourself into the brand. So like, I bet you want a KTM right now, but you know, like you're Ducati. It's like, nah, somehow, some way, through metamorphosis, physics, and, you know, spiritual interventions, I have become a Ducati fanboy, and I really, really like the brand. And I plan on sticking with it. And my next bike might be the 821, might be the 1100 Evo, might be Street Fighter. I'm kind of ruling out. I wanted an 848 Street Fighter, but I'm kind of ruling that out at this point because for a few reasons. But that's going to be in a different podcast all about the new bike search and blah, blah, blah. Like, and I'd love your feedback about that, obviously, as always. But Ducati is the brand. And it's just rare. You don't see many of them. Even though, like, New York City, for example. In New York City, yes. Or in big cities, San Francisco and other big cities, you know, Denver, Chicago, whatever. Like, you will see a ton of Ducatis. The same way you'll see a ton of Triumphs and a ton of BMWs. But as you go through the states, through the country, Ducati is rare as hell. And I've been obviously like those people in the middle of nowhere in Midwest or like Nebraska somewhere. Like, it was the most adorable thing ever. People would literally, like motorcycle riders, like old dudes, would walk up to me at a gas station and just say, "Damn, haven't seen one of these in a long time. It's a racing Italian motorcycle, huh? Ducati." And it's just like, yes, like to some people, like, you know, I'd just be like, yeah. And other people, I'd be like, no, it's like a slow cruiser, basically. But it does make me feel special. I've had so many amazing conversations from people who, because, you know, obviously any motorcycle person with any brand motorcycle has these same experiences where somebody was just like, oh, I love your Honda. Oh, I love your Triumph. Oh, I love your anything, you know, Harley. And I'm sure there's a bond. But like Ducati, I've had amazing conversations with people who either never seen one, never heard of it, like what is this, or people who've had one, or people who want to get one. There's something special about Ducati. Or maybe it's all in my head. Maybe it's all in my head and it's nothing special and it's just like any other bike. But I'm going to keep going with it. I'm going to run with it. It makes me feel good. So to sum it all up, you know, why do I obsess and love my 620 so much? Many things, but looks, style, comfort, it's reliable, price and cost of maintenance, speedy, control-y, feel-y on the roads, perfect. It makes me feel good emotionally and physically. The rumble, the sound, oof. And there's something magical about Ducati. Just, it makes me feel special and rare. The fact that all of them are handmade in Bologna, Italy, and obviously some scramblers are made elsewhere, I believe, or assembled or whatever. I'm not going to get into details of that because I'm not 100% certain. But as far as I know, Ducati's made by hand and comes out of Bologna, which is a beautiful thing. And I want to ask you, I want to apologize ahead of time for this terribly disgusting fanboyish episode of this podcast, because I actually did a poll recently on my vlog, on my YouTube channel, which you should check out, Ducati NYC vlog on YouTube, about what kind of bikes most people ride, like what kind of bikes my viewers ride and where they're from. And first of all, you guys are awesome, and I love the feedback, and from all over the world, all over the country, and every brand under the sun was represented. Even though my channel, my vlog spews Ducati fanboyism and Ducati love, like I'm passionate about it, and I make fun of bikes, sometimes, which is terrible. It's incredible, the variety of bikes out there. So, and I respect and love all of them. Trust me. Like, even though I bust my friends' balls about like their sports bike or their whatever adventure bike, we have so many conversations. I often go to Dirty Billy, which is like this motorcycle garage down the street here, and I talk shit about everybody's bike, and I like this is a very dangerous move, because when you show up to a place where there's like 5 people with all different bikes, or all Triumph, like say 3 Triumph dudes, Suzuki dude, and me, and I literally openly say like my bike is the best, and they're probably just like, obviously it's all games and fun, and they bust my balls and they talk shit about the brand and how it's unreliable and slow and blah blah blah, expensive, and it's all for the fun and for the games, and it's really nice to be passionate about something, because obviously you can be switching bikes and be passionate about other things in motorcycling, not necessarily the brand, because obviously I'm passionate about all sorts of stuff, camping, touring, going fast, whatever, which touring and camping is a huge thing on this bike. The reason why I love this bike, just to add another reason, is the way it looks with all this camping gear on. It's just it's a gorgeous, beautiful, exposed trellis bike with a huge gas tank, big fat tank, big round light, big bags on the back. What a situation. What a beautiful situation. All right. I was worried that this episode is going to ramble on, because I feel like I'm talking in circles, because you could probably hear by the 5th minute of this podcast about my passion for this damn motor bicycle. But I hope that kind of clarifies as to why I love this bike so much, this specific 2006 Ducati Monster 620, and as to why it's so complicated and it's such a hard decision for me to get a new bike. Because even though I'm going to keep this bike, even if I get a new bike, I'm keeping this 620. I'm not going to sell it for $1,000, because it has 50,000 miles on it now. It's pretty worthless. Especially it's well used, harshly used. So anyway, yeah. And I just want to thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for the feedback. Really appreciate it. And don't forget to watch the vloggies and check out the Ducati NYC Instagram and all of that good stuff. And thank you very much. And we shall talk on a different episode. And.